Hello everyone, I'm Captain Courageous and I review old school modules and games and try to give them a fun and informative analysis. This week I'm taking a look at the classic module for basic Dungeons & Dragons, Before the Lost City. This was the very first module ever written specifically for the second edition of the Moldvay edition of the D&D Basic Set by Tom Moldvay himself. Spoiler warning, as usual, this will be a deep delve into the secrets of this module, so if you would like to play it, you might want to simply skip for now and direct your DM to this video. Otherwise, let's begin. Released in 1982, Before the Lost City was written by D&D Basic author Tom Moldvay, whose revision of the D&D Basic Set had been released a year prior in 1981. This is the very first module specifically written for the Moldvay version of the D&D Basic Set, and who better to write it than Moldvay himself. Moldvay's other module contributions include a co-author credit with Dave Cook for X1 The Isle of Dread and X2 Castle Amber. After writing Lost City, Moldvay would go on to write for TSR's games Gangbusters and Star Frontiers, after which he would leave TSR entirely. This module is ranked number 28 of Dungeon Magazine's 30 Greatest Adventures of All Time. The module itself is clearly meant to emulate the classic pulp fantasy trope of a group of heroes discovering a forgotten once great civilization that has fallen into decay and teeters on the brink of collapse. In this case, the PCs happen upon a ziggurat-style pyramid buried in the sands of the desert after they become separated from a merchant caravan during a sandstorm. Running low on food and water, the heroes happen upon a ruined city in the center of which is a massive step pyramid, the top tier adorned by three 30-foot-tall statues. On one side of the pyramid is a set of steps leading upwards to the top. Climbing to the top will reveal nothing initially, but a careful search will ultimately uncover a secret door beneath the steps that leads into the pyramid, and that's where the adventure really begins. What follows is a 100-room dungeon crawl that will involve the PCs in the plight of a buried, decaying city, Synodecia. There are a healthy number of maps provided for this module. The cardstock cover is of the 3-panel variety and includes maps for tiers 1 through 5. In addition, there is a center pull-out section that includes the maps for tiers 6 through 10, as well as a very nice subterranean cross-section and a map of the Lost City itself, which is one of the first isometric maps to appear in a D&D adventure. The module details the 4 major factions of the city as well as the 100 rooms of the pyramid that actually has an additional 5 inverted levels. The fall of the great city of Synodecia began with the construction of the Great Pyramid itself, built to honor the city's fallen King Alexander. Digging in the lower levels revived a foul, evil creature known as Zargon. Ultimately, the city's inhabitants fell to offering sacrifices to the creature to keep it placated, and that led to outright worship of the thing as a god. In time, worship of the city's other gods, Gorm, Usamagaras, and Madarua, were mostly forgotten, and a lethargic worship of Zargon began as the citizens sought refuge in strong wines and drugs. The city fell into decay and ultimately fell to conquest from the outside world. The remaining citizens fled to the underground catacombs, and there they rebuilt their city underground. Many generations have passed since that time, and the surviving Synodecians' flesh has turned albino pale, and they have developed a kind of infravision. They wear stylized masks with an animal or human-like face. They adorn themselves with feathers and paint their bodies in bright colors. Yet there are still a few among the people that seek to restore Synodecia to its former glory. There is the Brotherhood of Gorm, the Magi of Usamagaras, and the Warrior Maidens of Madarua. These 3 factions are at odds with one another, and it is these factions that the PCs will encounter while exploring the pyramid. There is a fourth faction, the Priests of Zargon, who worship the foul beast that resides in the lowest tier in the pyramid and control the underground city itself. As you can see, this is a pretty complex setup that the PCs are unknowingly walking into, and this is not just some hack and slash dungeon crawl, though it's certainly possible to interact with the dungeon in that manner if so desired. As they progress through the various tiers, they will encounter each of the factions in turn, and it's entirely possible that the PCs can join and be accepted into one of the factions, as it is explained that each faction is attempting to restore the city to its former glory in its own way. The pyramid itself is full of traps and hazards, and one thing that is not made entirely clear is how the inhabitants traverse these hazards without activating them, so this will be something for the DM to consider. In addition, the Lost City really contains the seeds for what could be the basis for an entire campaign, as the PCs attempt to unite the warring factions to help rebuild the city and fight the Priests of Zargon. In addition to the isometric city map, there is a one-page key to the various lettered locations within the city itself. However, there is a lot left up for the DM to flesh out. Wisely, Moldvay also leaves some detailed suggestions on further adventures in the city. It's pretty amazing what they packed into just 28 pages in those days. This takes the module well beyond the scope of its scant 28 pages and potentially leaves room for a campaign that could go on for years. There are some really outstanding puzzles and traps in this module, and any DM would be wise to take a look at this module's design. On Tier 3, there is a rotating hallway room that connects in 8 different directions. There are archaic-looking symbols provided that adorn the various buttons in this section that key to one of the 8 directions. One can just take a look at this map, and it looks like it would be a lot of fun to explore. Over the years, this module has been revisited and revised a few times. Dungeon Issue 142, January 2007, has an alternate introduction to the module called Mask of Dreams, though it was written for the 3rd edition of the game. The 3rd edition Dungeons & Dragons supplement Elder Evils also revisits Zargon, his cult, and the 5th tier of the Ziggurat in some detail, and provides an alternate history and connections to the 9 Hells, the Devil Asmodeus, and Jublex. It might be worth checking out. Artwork for the module is by Jim Holloway, Harry Quinn, and Stephen D. Sullivan. This is some of the best art for the time frame and is quite evocative of the various encounters within. Getting a copy of The Lost City will either be difficult or easy, depending on whether you wish to require this in print or simply PDF. This is a 3-paneled covered module, and as such is the way of things. Many original copies are in rough shape. Quality copies can be hard to come by, and quality copies at a reasonable price harder still. Tattered copies still go for between $30 and $40, while near mint copies fetch a price of around $50 to $80. Conversely, you can pick up a PDF copy at Drive-Thru RPG for just $4.99, though there is no print on demand available for this module yet. Luckily, this module has been picked up by Goodman Games as the 4th entry into its original Adventures Reincarnated series, which will provide a 5th edition conversion as well as a reprint of the classic module, and this is set to release in just a few weeks, June 15th as of the publication of this video. Given the high quality of their previous releases in this series, this should be quite a treat for old and new school D&D fans. So, before I get into my D20 rating scale for this week's adventure, let me say a few words on how I come by my ratings and the nuances of the gradient scale. First, it is my choice on what to review, and I try to present things that I think that you, the viewer, might not only be interested in, but what I think are essentially at least good old school modules or games that are worth running or taking a second look at. as I try to use my 40 years of gaming experience to critique or point out potential pitfalls and make suggestions on certain fixes. But at the end of the day, I'm presenting things on the channel that I'm going to recommend in some way. The reasons for this are twofold. It takes about 3 days to make a video, and if I'm going to spend that much time on something, I just feel it should be on something worthwhile. You're spending time watching this video, and hopefully you'll get something out of it that will be useful to you in your own games. And 2, regardless of whether a module is good or bad, what is true is that someone has dedicated a lot of time and effort to make it, and I have absolutely no want or desire to pick apart someone else's hard work. At the end of the day, this channel is dedicated to the promotion and the continued growth of the OSR movement. I feel that can best be served by bringing to light the lost gems of the past and pointing out the brand new contributions to the movement coming out from the most talented creators. So while it might seem from the things I reviewed previously that my rating scale is skewed high, this is because you are not seeing the things I've chosen not to review, and thus the low ratings have not been presented. If you look at the rating system, you can see that it is broken down into 8 tiers, and those tiers have high-low scale levels to them as well. For example, something could be good, but it could be on the low, a 14, or the high, a 15, end of the tier. When I select something to make a video on, at the very least, I'm trying to select something that I think is above average to good overall. In addition, let's face it, I'm a slave to the YouTube algorithm. I've got to select topics that people will click on and watch most of the video, comment on, and hopefully give me a like. I hope that clears up some of the confusion or questions you may have had about the rating system. So let's just go ahead and take a look at B4, The Lost City, on my D20 rating scale of style, presentation, and value. Style-wise, this is the classic 1980s TSR trade dress with color cover and art from Jim Holloway. This cover art is really quite good. There is clearly a priest of Zargon present, as well as others from the various factions, and the more you look at it, there are more details that connect to the adventure you'll find. The various factions, the mosaics on the wall, the use of color, to the little bits of artifacts on the desk. There is a lot going on here. Back cover art and interior pieces are also top-notch and help fill out the picture of the culture of the Synodicians, so I'll rate this a 15. Good. Presentation here is also top-notch. There are 100 rooms presented of a 10-tiered ziggurat pyramid, most with descriptive box text, the skeleton description of the eponymous lost city, and tons of great old-school maps. There are some peculiarities that the DM may have to address, such as how exactly the various factions are moving back and forth in this trap-filled labyrinth. But really, that's just a minor nitpick to what is overall well thought out and well organized. Add to that the various factions, the internal conflicts, and pulp fantasy story greatly elevates this adventure well above your basic dungeon crawl. I'm going to go ahead and say this is a 19. Amazing. Value-wise, this is a mixed bag. I personally do not enjoy trying to absorb information from a PDF, though I do find the searchability quite handy. I think many of you feel the same way, and that means that even if you only spend $4.99 to get the PDF, one must consider the costs of printing. This is a quality PDF at DriveThruRPG, and it is searchable. Conversely, getting a printed copy is going to be a bit expensive. Still, this is a great module that could be the basis for an entire campaign that will go on for years and will undoubtedly provide many exciting game sessions. So I'll give this a rating of 17. And that brings my overall rating for B4 The Lost City to 17. Very good. Thank you all so much for watching. I hope you found this video informative and useful. This Wednesday, I will continue my board game reviews with a look at the much-beloved HeroQuest game, and next Saturday, I will continue my delve into basic D&D reviews with a look at the Dawn of the Emperor's box set. As usual, I'd like to give a big shout out and thank you to my Patreons. If you enjoyed this review, please subscribe and click the little bell so you'll get updates when I add new content. Please give this video a like, comment, and share. Join the channel's Facebook page, RPG Reviews, and consider supporting the channel by becoming a Patreon yourself, or alternatively, you can just send a tip through the PayPal tip jar link in the description. As always, my friends, may your D20 roll true and game on.